The Downtown Rams podcast is brought to you by Seat Giant, Kayvon Webster's LA Food Truck Vibe 305, and of course, Rams On Demand. Now enjoy the show.
Down the middle to the end zone. Whoa. Caught by Brandon Cooks. Shoot your arrows. It picks. Nickel Roby Coleman throws. End zone caught. Touchdown. Tyler Higbee. Cooper Kupp plucks it out of the air and gives the Rams the lead. LaMarcus Joyner returns to the lineup with an interception in London. 35-30. Robert Woods, first down 20. 10-5. Touchdown. LA! No, it's Goff who keeps it. And Goff goes crashing into the end zone. Aaron Donald almost beat the football there and comes away with his third sack of the afternoon. Met immediately and sacked. Corey Littleton, have yourself a day. And he gets gobbled up. Savage has to eat it as Michael Brockers picks up the sack. He's decked by Tom. Picked off. Marcus Peters. Strutting his stump. Mark Barron the last 4 weeks has been a Pro Bowler. He picked off Dak Prescott into Seattle territory, into the clear. 30, 20, Farrell Cooper 10. Farrell Cooper at the goal line.
Cousins sacked. Ndamukong Suh. Of all the guys, it's the rookie John Franklin Myers who knocks it out of Cousins' right hand.
Todd Gurley, 20, 10. Gurley for MVP! Touchdown, LA!
Alright guys, I'm back. I only gave you one episode this week. I wasn't going to keep you guys short, so here's a quick, or rather a mini episode, episode 133, we'll put it right in the rotation, and it is about Sam Bradford, former Rams quarterback, and Bruce Irvin, former Raiders edge rusher. They both were waived today. I am recording this on a Saturday night on the East Coast, so it's around 8 o'clock. And I had some thoughts that were more than 20 minutes long, so I figured, you know what? I'll put this into a podcast. And you guys deserve it because you guys were so patient. Put a show out late Thursday night, so you guys deserve it. So I'm going to throw it out here. I've been asked this question. I've been asked, should the Rams even pursue them? Before I get into it, of course, if you like what you hear, please do me a favor and give me a review on iTunes. I know "give me" sounds very hostile, but if you could leave me a review, that would be great. I will be doing a giveaway pretty soon, so definitely look forward to that. I will let you know the details when they arise. So, without further ado, Rams. This is not necessarily a Rams Saints podcast. Already covered that in the previous podcast, which you can check out right on the website. You can check it out on Spreaker, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play Music. We're all over, so you can pretty much find us anywhere. Anyway, we got some news to talk about, and it's not news directly related to the Rams, but if you guys were following Twitter, I did tweet out during the trade deadline that the Rams were interested in trading for Bruce Irvin. He was considered in some case the fallback plan in case Dante Fowler was too much. As I mentioned before, the Jaguars, who traded Fowler for a 2019 third-round pick and a 2020 fifth-round pick, were trying to push the Rams' number and give him one of the compensation picks as well as one of the regular picks. So they were asking for two third-round picks, and the Rams weren't biting. So they get Fowler, and Irvin didn't make any sense. Then Irvin, Thursday Night Football happens. Irvin plays 8 snaps. The Raiders realize he's not a fit anymore. Then again, they realized apparently Khalil Mack wasn't a fit anymore. So they cut Irvin instead of trying to get something for him at the deadline. From what I heard is that they had 2 teams that were interested. I believe the Rams were one of them, since that's what I was told. But 2 teams were interested in him, possibly 3, and they didn't get a deal done. So to not trade Irvin and then cut him literally the week of, I'm not even talking, that's 2 days after they could have traded him. I don't really know what to say. But another person's trash could be another person's treasure, and that's what brings us here. The Rams are looking at an 8-0 record. They're looking at the biggest opponent of the season, the New Orleans Saints, who happen to be the second best team in the league, and they are looking at a potential Super Bowl win this season. Now, let's not move too far ahead of ourselves. It's 8-0, but there's 8 more games to go. They still have yet to play the Chiefs. They have yet to play the Saints. They have yet to play the Lions, the Eagles, the Bears, you name it, they've yet to play them. So, with that being said, we're not going to get too far ahead of ourselves. But this is the perfect time, in my mind, if you are looking at your roster and you're thinking, wow, we are there. We're on the cusp. Or we are there, and we just want to add some insurance. Well, guess what? 2 insurance policies just got dropped. And I think one of them is bigger than an insurance policy. You have Sam Bradford, former Rams quarterback drafted in 2010, first overall pick ahead of, ironically, the Ram now, Ndamukong Suh, number 2, that went to the Detroit Lions. And he just became available because the Arizona Cardinals cut him. Then you have Bruce Irvin, a guy that I mentioned the Rams were interested in at the deadline. They get Dante Fowler, but instead they could actually end up getting both of them. However, both of those guys need to go through waivers, and they could get claimed, and that would really make this podcast obsolete. However, I don't want to look at it like that. I'm going to give you some insight. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Rams, so this podcast is not going to be just obsolete no matter what happens. Also, with that being said, John Gruden pulled I forgot to release you today. So Bruce Irvin can't be released until Monday, which he will be released on Monday. It's going to happen. You don't just say something and not do it. Bruce Irvin's going to be released. So that this podcast is definitely going to have some value. We'll start off with Bruce Irvin. I will go down the line of Bruce Irvin, and then I will talk about Sam Bradford. First and foremost, the Rams should not claim, but they should pursue. Irvin is not somebody I'm about to claim. I don't want to take on any extra dollar signs that I don't have to. Bruce Irvin's somebody, if he wants to play for an 8-0 team, which there's a good chance he might want to. There's a lot of players that want to play for an 8-0 team. If he wants to play for an 8-0 team, he's going to go to the Rams because they're the only 8-0 team. He's going to go for the veteran minimum since he's already been paid quite a bit of money. The Rams are not going to claim him. That does not make any logical sense for the Rams. 31-year-old Bruce Irvin, who is a fringe starter at this point in his career. I look at him more as he's coming to the Rams to be a rotational guy with the emergence of Samson Ebukam. You look at the fact that they drafted Trayvon Young, Justin Lawler, Obanaya Okoronkwo still hasn't even hit the roster yet. I'm not about to say this guy's going to start. But if you want to bolster your roster, you want to add more talent to that pass rushing unit, as a rotation, I say go for it. That makes sense. He's not a starter, but if he can be signed for the veteran minimum, and Vinny Bonsier, who is a friend of the podcast, he did actually mention the Rams do have interest, but it would only be for the veteran minimum, then there's a chance. I mean, that makes sense. So here, like in short, the Rams should not claim him. They don't want to take on that salary, but they do. They should at least consider pursuing it. The second point, the Rams had interest at the deadline. I mentioned that earlier. Irvin was considered a fallback if they didn't get Fowler. Mentioned that. I just want to re-emphasize that point. The third, the Rams got Fowler. That doesn't mean they don't need Irvin. Fowler doesn't change the spectrum. Fowler does not move the needle. Fowler is a guy, if you sign him long-term, he could end up being a superstar. He's only 24 years old. He was the former 3rd overall pick in the 2015 draft, and he's somebody in a new system, with a change of scenery. He could really reap the benefits. Now, bear in mind, he's only played, 180 snaps? He has not really started this year, so he's going to be taking on more of a, he's going to be taking on more of a role with the Rams. I would say right now he's already their best pass rusher. A lot of potential there. He's a potential guy. You definitely want to re-sign him. But he definitely helps. But that he in no way makes Irvin a obvious no decision. Like, you can't say because they got Fowler, they can't be interested in Irvin for the veteran minimum, if that's the case. However, Irvin, like I mentioned, would be a rotational player, but this is a team ready to win a Super Bowl. We've seen it in the past. I mean, the Eagles right now, they just added Haloti Ngata, they added Michael Bennett, they added Chris Long a couple years ago. The Patriots are another team. Remember when they added Steven Jackson? They signed Chris Long, and this stuff happens. The Packers, they end up adding Julius Peppers. Those are the type of moves that franchises that are about to win a Super Bowl or close to it make. They add those veterans. Now, Bruce Irvin's a little bit off the chain. I'm not going to lie. He is a very erratic personality from what I have seen through, different articles and such. Obviously, I've never been around the guy, but he is well known for being a little bit of a loose cannon. The Rams kind of welcome personalities like that, but here's the thing. Bruce Irvin is somebody that has had off-the-field issues. But let's not make this about the Rams and their off-the-field or on-the-field issues. I'm really tired of that because I just don't think it's a fair narrative. Oh, since Marcus Peters came to the Rams, what has he done off the field? Well, he's participated in charity work. Actually, right after he was traded, there was a coat drive done in Kansas City for a bunch of kids that didn't have coats, but let's not talk about that, off-the-field issues, right? Or Aqib Talib, who literally put together a facility, which you saw if you watched that Rams mini docu-series, Behind the Grind. He put together this facility for kids to basically get tutored and also work on their performance, whether it's playing football or I think he also had a gym. So obviously he's interested in helping out the community. So, and Ndamukong Suh, he's such a head case, right? Tell me what charity he didn't donate to. He's done so much work off the field. And it goes back to the time when he was at Nebraska. It's funny how they get this whole, this idea where, look at all these head cases. This is the narrative going in the year. And I kept saying, that's a false narrative, and it will bite you in the butt if you try to jump on that bandwagon. They're 8-0. So, I mean, unless there's something unforeseen that's like going to be really bad, okay, but I don't see it. Dante Fowler, off the field issues. I can't imagine that's going to be an issue. Listening to the way that these guys, you talk about Aaron Donald smiling ear to ear when he found out about the news. These guys, to me, sound like they're about to take him in and, take him under their wing. And that's one of the good things about this whole thing. But, going off a little bit on a tangent there. Bruce Irvin, I don't think his off-the-field issues are going to bother anybody. I don't think this team, when you have a common goal, you're 8-0, you're trying to win out and win a Super Bowl, I don't think any of that stuff is really going to come out. I think more so, when you look at the off-the-field issues, that starts to hit you when you're not losing. And that is why Fowler getting out of Jacksonville, I think he is going to love this opportunity. He needed this opportunity. Because Jacksonville, he had a chance to completely kill his stock going into his contract year, kill his stock in Jacksonville. He was kind of getting pushed to the back of the line. When you talk about Yannick Ngakoue, you talk about the guys they have on that defense. I mean, Calais Campbell, they had Marcel Darius, they spent all that money on Malik Jackson. Those guys kind of push you to the back of the line. And this is a former first-round pick, third overall pick, to be, certain. So I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. I wouldn't really call this whole thing adding more off the field guys since we haven't seen one issue. And the only issue that we have seen has come from a practice squad offensive lineman. So I want that kind of cut out. But moving forward, Irvin could end up stepping on the younger players' toes. When you talk about Ogbonnaya Okoronkwo not playing a snap, Justin Lawler, who is under 40 snaps this season, as well as Trayvon Young, it's easy to understand how that could really impact them early on in their career. But at the same time, Bruce Irvin would be a one-year guy. So how badly could it be? That's really the only con in this whole thing. If you can get Irvin for the veteran minimum, there's only one con, and that's, do you want to take away from the younger guys? Do you want to take away from Matt Longacre as well? I mean, those are the questions you want to ask. Because do you like what you've seen from Trayvon Young in limited opportunities, albeit he's only had, 11 snaps on defense? Justin Lawler? Obanai Okoronkwo? I mean, that's the question you have to ask yourself. John Franklin Myers is another one as well. But do you look at that as, though, those guys are long-term guys and this is worth it or not? That's what you have to ask yourself. Also moving forward, Irvin is going to be the only option at the veteran minimum right now on that at that edge position. So if the Rams do want to add another guy, I mean, he'd be the only option if he is at the veteran minimum. But he could bolster a unit that is severely inexperienced and raw. And what I mean by that is, I mean, this is the same team that had Will Hayes 2 years ago, William Hayes, who was very, very good in his role. They had Chris Long 3-4 years ago, and they had Robert Quinn last year. Well, they've let all those guys go. So the most experienced edge guy is Matt Longacre. And then the second most is Samson Ebukam. Until you throw Dante Fowler in, and now it would go Longacre and Fowler, I believe. I think they were the same class. I could be wrong. So that's the crazy thing of it all. What you have to weigh is, again, do you grab Irvin and risk stunning the growth of a younger pass rusher? Or do you ride with what you have? And for me, I have to say I'm grabbing Irvin. For the veteran minimum, it's a matter to me if he is going to get claimed or not, which is entirely possible. I think, we'll talk about this later about fits, but there are teams around the league that definitely could fit the bill for Irvin. That is something to keep in mind. So I will say, weighing in on that, the verdict for me is that you do grab Irvin if he is available on the veteran minimum, and you run away with that. And the last question I would ask is Irvin a need or a luxury? And to me, at this point, after getting Fowler, I'd say he's a luxury. But you know what? At the veteran minimum, I forget who said it, but someone said the Rams are the Golden State Warriors of the NFL. Okay, the Golden State Warriors of the NFL. Well, the Golden State Warriors happen to get DeMarcus Cousins for a lot less than he was supposed to get because of his injury. They took advantage of it. You have a fringe starting candidate at a position of weakness in I would say overall. And you have the luxury of the fact that he's coming from the Raiders. So the Raiders are just getting rid of everybody. And you didn't have to trade a pick for him, which you should have had to trade a pick. But they didn't trade him. They cut him instead not long after. So it's one of those things I would definitely do it if he goes unclaimed and he's willing to take the veteran minimum. I think that is almost a no-brainer. However, there's more to this story. I said Bruce Irvin. He wasn't the first name that came up, though. I wanted to start with him. Now, for my listeners that can't stand Sammy B, I guess shield your ears? I don't know. I think you guys should just listen and hear me out. Sam Bradford is a guy that I mentioned earlier in the year. I looked at what the Rams had at backup quarterback, and I was not confident, a young Jared Goff going down in any shape or form, any way possible, he would not be able to be spelled by anybody on this roster. I don't think Brandon Allen's good enough to back up Jared Goff and have things go smoothly enough to win football games. And I really don't believe in Sean Mannion as much as I wanted to. I will say this, though. Sam Bradford signs a 2-year, $40 million deal, I believe that the total was, for the Arizona Cardinals. Well, the only problem is, and this is what I said earlier in the year, the Cardinals didn't look good. And on paper, I saw this team as the second best team in the NFC West. I really looked at this team and I was like, wow, I'm impressed with what they have. But I didn't take into account that Steve Wilkes is a rookie head coach, They're installing a new offense under Mike McCoy, who's now been fired. And they also drafted a backup. They drafted a quarterback for the future that could very well end up playing. Well, the problem is Sam Bradford never seemed to have a grasp of this offense. And I would even make the argument that Mike McCoy didn't really have a grasp on this offensive personnel. It just seemed like the beginning was just a bad movie that they kept trying different things, hoping that they would make the movie better as they went along, but they were too lazy to go back and edit the movie. They just released it as it was. Some of that could be contributed to the fact that, yes, Sam Bradford's old college teammate in Oklahoma, who was supposed to be a star, who ended up being just decent in Jermaine Gresham, he's actually supposed to be a decent part of the offense. He gets hurt early on. Ricky Seals-Jones isn't half bad, so they still had him. They had Larry Fitzgerald, but they ended up letting pieces like a John Brown go in free agency, and I don't think that was the smartest idea. John Brown, Jerron Brown, they both were gone, and you look at the weapons that Bradford had, and I wouldn't say that they were the greatest. I don't think David Johnson is running behind a even subpar offensive line. Their offensive line is pitiful. I would also say David Johnson doesn't look any bit as confident as he used to be. He doesn't look like the same back that I said a while ago was better than Todd Gurley, and honestly, I was probably right at the time. David Johnson's not running as hard. David Johnson doesn't look as good. So a lot of that factored into what the product on the field was. Sam Bradford might have gotten clumped in with that, but the Cardinals as a whole just did not look like that great of a team. So Sam Bradford, he's looking at a team that, well, this is not what he signed up for. He was supposed to be the starter, signed a 2-year deal, and they drafted Josh Rosen, and Rosen was going to come in and be the focal point of this franchise. He was going to be the face of the franchise. Bradford was going to have 2 years, at least 1 year, and the wheels just fell right off the wagon. You can blame it on a lot of things. Mike McCoy's, brutal play calling, I would say, is one of the things that definitely came up. Honestly, the Rams shutting them out was one of the biggest indicators that this team was nowhere near where they were supposed to be. And that's when I knew I kind of had to bite the bullet on what I said earlier in the season. I've been so wrong about the Cardinals. So Bradford actually was just waived today, and this comes as a shock to me. A little bit. Because I guess there's no reason to really keep him, but you mean to tell me that you didn't even try to trade him at the deadline with a team like, say, Jacksonville that has Cody Kessler, who's probably the best quarterback on that team. They just signed Landry Jones, and Blake Bortles really has been a mess. You mean to tell me that you didn't even offer a trade for Sam Bradford? You didn't even try to shop him? That goes in Raiders territory, and I guess that's why these two teams are fighting for a number 1 overall pick. Anyway, with that being said, Sam Bradford's a former Ram. I've already said that. The Rams should not claim him. They should not do that. That's a lot of money. So say $2 million this year, you're going to take on, $20 million next year of his contract? No. Let that go by the wayside, just like I said for Bruce Irvin, and pursue him if he doesn't get claimed. It makes no sense to claim him. It doesn't make sense for any team that needs a quarterback to claim him. You want to try, he got paid a lot of money this year. I would try for the veteran minimum. I would do it. Definitely try for that. The Rams are right up against that cap. And it's going to be tough. But they could fit Bruce Irvin and Sam Bradford for the right price. They could get them both. The Rams drafted Bradford in 2010, number 1 overall, head of Ndamukong Suh. Like I said, it's so ironic because Ndamukong Suh's on the team as of right now. The Rams have Sean Mannion and Brandon Allen in that building. One guy's on the practice squad, one guy's the backup quarterback. We saw Sean Mannion in brief last year, was not very good against the 49ers. He didn't even look good this year in the preseason. There was some worry. There's definitely some worrisome factors that go into this. I think you can make the argument that you can't be comfortable with Sean Mannion. You didn't make a trade at the deadline because you didn't have to. Jared Goff is fully healthy, and you're not expecting him to go down anytime soon. But you should at least always have that in the back of your head in case he goes down. Is Sean Mannion the guy I want to trot out there? He understands the offense, blah, 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 blah. He has the weapons. He has the offensive line. I'm sure he'd look decent. But you want to talk about the guy that set the completion percentage record in 2016, the guy that has showed in the past when he has weapons in front of him and a scheme and a direction of what they want to go on offense, of where they want to go on offense, he can contribute. And that is Sam Bradford. And I know, what you're thinking. A lot of people think it's a joke, and they really just think Sam Bradford is a complete and utter joke. And that, fine, whatever. But hear me out. If Jared Goff were to go down right now, and say you somehow managed to sign Sam Bradford the veteran minimum, or you could just have Sean Mannion take over, who are you starting? Because no way in my right mind am I starting Sean Mannion over a guy that has played more than 50, had more than 50 starts in the NFL. There's no way. There's just no way I'm playing Sean Mannion over that. Mannion's had, 2? I would say probably 1. And you could chalk it up to lack of usage, being under Jeff Fisher. He could go off to the Patriots and end up being the next Tom Brady. Well, I don't think that's likely. But I'm sorry, I'm not about to wait. If Jared Goff goes down, the Rams have a mission this year. They are trying to win a Super Bowl. And if Goff goes down, you can't tell me that is still intact, regardless of record, with Sean Mannion. You can't. So I'm thinking Sam Bradford, a guy that just kind of came into the spotlight after this move, a guy that I felt, watching the Cardinals, I mentioned it to Joe on this podcast, watching the Cardinals struggle, Sam Bradford's going to be a guy that's available at the deadline, and if the Rams are smart enough and say Bradford, or, Goff is to go down, I think Sam Bradford would fit that offense. What's been Bradford's mantra his entire career? He needs weapons. We never heard this with Goff. Goff never seemed to need weapons. He could do things with guys that weren't necessarily top-notch. I know what you're thinking as well. What about Todd Gurley, Robert Wood? Yeah, I get that. But we never had that hanging over our heads. With Bradford, no matter who they added, there was always, Bradford doesn't have enough weapons. Well, all Bradford needs is to stand upright in the pocket. You look at this offense, you have Todd Gurley, you have Robert Woods, you have Brandon Cooks, Cooper Kupp, and right now, 4 out of the 5 guys on the offensive line are in the top 5 according to Pro Football Focus. So Bradford, I want to tell you right now, Bradford right now would succeed in this offense. That does not mean he would, emulate anywhere near what Goff would do, but I think you could win a Super Bowl if Jared Goff went down and you had Sam Bradford with a pocket like this and those weapons. Maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm not, but this is why we're talking about this. So, Bradford is simply a 1-year insurance policy on Jared Goff, should he go down with injury. Mannion's in a contract year. So you could cut Mannion and replace him with Sam Bradford. You could do that. You have Brandon Allen, who actually knows the offense, on the practice squad. So should that be a problem, you can promote him. Bradford also, again, if it's on the veteran minimum, it'd be the veteran minimum. You could try it out. If you clearly see that it's not going to work, then you have Brandon Allen as the backup. And I'm sorry, Sean Mannion isn't that much better than Brandon Allen for me to never make this move. So, I would say at this point in his career, Bradford is a fringe starter / backup. And I think that is an upgrade. I also would say Bradford, it would be taking over for Sean Mannion again for 1 year. It's not like you're adding Bradford for multiple seasons. It's not like you'd have to pay him a lot. If it's for the veteran minimum, again, I think you do it. It makes sense. Again, you have Brandon Allen on that practice squad who understands the offense, and I think you definitely have to take advantage of that. The thing that I weigh Do you grab Sam Bradford and risk letting go of Mannion knowing he knows the offense better? Or do you ride with Mannion and basically pray Goff doesn't go down? Again, I'm sorry. I'm taking Sam Bradford. I know it sounds crazy. There are a lot of questions that need to be answered, but, I mean, one of those is Sam Bradford a need or a luxury at this point? And I'm sorry, I'm going to tell you right now, he's a need. Because, I'm just not confident Sean Mannion is the answer should Goff go down. Now, this could bite me big time. Goff could go down in this game, and Mannion could ride the wave and take the Rams to the Super Bowl. But I'm confident that he's just not the answer. And so when you have an opportunity present itself, I'm not saying you're going out to trade him. It's past the trade deadline. That's what I suggested earlier. Bradford has now been cut. He's already been paid. He probably realizes he's a fringe starter who could, maybe the Bills pick him up and they try and go with him, or maybe the Jaguars do. But aside from that, the Rams are probably the best possibility to win a Super Bowl for the first time in his career. So, would you rather hook up with the old team, try to win a Super Bowl as the backup? Or would you rather go to the Buffalo Bills, freeze in Buffalo, and play for nothing? And honestly, Sam Bradford in Buffalo would be interesting because they are missing the quarterback production and that defense is playing very well. They keep them in games. But I'm sorry, if you're going up against Western New York or Los Angeles, California, you're picking Los Angeles, California. And that's not even including the wins. 8-0 versus the Bills. I mean, they've won 2 games this year. So, yeah, I think Sam Bradford would definitely have to consider that. My final thoughts on this, because we are going to wrap this up here. You can only pick one, Bradford or Irvin. Now, this is really interesting for me. Who would you rather have, Sam Bradford or Bruce Irvin? Well, I'm so confident that Dante Fowler already helped the edge position enough, and I'm confident that Okoronkwo will be back. If I had to pick one, I'd pick Sam Bradford, because if Goff went down, yes, I would be very uncomfortable with that. But I'd feel more comfortable having a veteran in Sam Bradford that has started games before than having Sean Mannion. And this is not hate Mannion parade. This just came up. The next best quarterback that's available, I can't even tell you. I don't know who is available. Sam Bradford is by far the best quarterback option on the free agency market. I mean, that you have to take advantage of things like that. Next thing, does Okoronkwo being healthy, or rather, does his health have anything to do with a potential Irvin signing? Because I don't think so. I think if the Rams sign Bruce Irvin, that's just them taking advantage of, A, they were able to get him for the veteran minimum, and B, he's a veteran that can help bolster this position. You add another guy for cheap on a 1-year deal. It's not even, he's going to play, 8 games? Not including the playoffs? I don't think it would really have to do about Okoronkwo. I don't think, the only thing is, if you add him, you now have to get rid of another player on the roster if you want to bring Okoronkwo on. I'm sure his health would factor in, if they knew right now he'd be IR'd, he can't play, I'm sure Bruce Irvin is guaranteed, but as long as he, doesn't get claimed, but no, I don't think it directly would affect or Okoronkwo's health wouldn't directly affect their decision. Another interesting tidbit I want to bring up. Would John Gruden's lack of playing Irvin affect McVay's decision to pursue him? And I say this because we're all so quick to, pick up the pieces in Oakland, but you also have to keep in mind, John Gruden and Sean McVay know each other very well. They are friends. They go back a long ways. Gruden could easily, Sean could easily call him up and be like, we're considering, picking up Bruce. Tell me what you think about him. It's like when you go for a job interview, you do well, or you need a reference, and it's like they call your references, and your references are like, well, this guy, your former employer, they're not going to tell you, but they're like, yeah, he was a good worker, but he was late a lot. So McVay, in a lost season for Oakland, it's not like John Gruden's going to have an issue telling McVay what happened. Gruden's going to either let him know, yes, he's a good player. We're just looking, long term. He doesn't make any sense, and we're going to cut him now so he has a chance to stick on with a team that has a chance to compete because this is a lost year. Or he's going to say something along the lines of, well, this season he wasn't doing it. There's some off the field stuff. I wouldn't do it. And that's why I am very interested to know what Gruden would say if McVay called up. Because that does happen in the NFL. There are different recommendations and such, so that would be interesting. Another one. Is Sam Bradford the quarterback that was traded away to the Eagles? And is he ready to bury that hatchet? Because, again, the Rams traded him. Les Snead was literally on TV, quote-unquote, saying you can't just delete Sam Bradford. You don't just delete Sam Bradford. And literally, like the next day, they deleted Sam Bradford. They traded him for a second-rounder and Nick Foles. Does Sam Bradford and his agent, Tom Condon, decide to bury the hatchet and go right to the Rams? Sam Bradford has never come out and said the Rams, are the reason he's a bust or anything. He has never trashed the Rams. But he's never also, you wouldn't know that he played there for as long as he did because it doesn't seem like he loved his time there. You haven't received that from him. So that would be another thing. He would have to bury a hatchet. Sometimes winning will do that for you. So we'll see on that end. Another question you have to ask yourself, is Sam Bradford ruined? Now, I know I just talked about why the Rams should grab him, but is Sam Bradford ruined? Would he succeed in Sean McVay's offense? I mean, this is the guy that set the completion percentage record not long ago. Was Mike McCoy's offense holding him back? Mike McCoy is known, around the league, people like him, but there are fans out there that have constantly complained about his play calling. So it could be a mixture of both. I wouldn't call Sam Bradford ruined, but I wouldn't call him a middle-of-the-road starter anymore. I would say fringe starter to a backup. And that's okay. You get that guy for the veteran minimum on a Super Bowl team when Sean Mannion's their backup, well, I don't think that's a bad thing. Another one to mention, Sean McVay, well, here's what I look at. Sean McVay's offense, and I'm not saying this to knock Goff, but he does such a nice job of scheming guys open. Again, would Sam Bradford really struggle in this offense that has 4 out of 5 guys in the top 5 per Pro Football Focus on the offensive line, has the MVP of the league in my mind in Todd Gurley, has guys like Brandon Cooks, the deep threat, you have Mr. Reliable Robert Woods, one of the best route runners in football in Cooper Kupp, and then you have the tight ends, Tyler Higbee and Gerald Everett, and then you have the defense that continues to get better, adding Dante Fowler, and they're going to get healthier with Aqib Talib and maybe Okoronkwo. Would he be walking into in a situation where he could really fail? Sam Bradford's issue his entire career is that he is lackluster under pressure, but when he has a pocket, just like any quarterback, maybe not any quarterback, many quarterbacks can succeed, and that's another reason. Will either Irvin or Bradford be claimed, though? And my answer for you is no, because I just don't think a team is willing to pay Bradford after he's already... I mean, you have to keep in mind, you are taking on his $20 million next season. I don't see a team doing that. I don't see the Jaguars. I don't see the Bills. Bills, that doesn't make any sense because you have Josh Allen for the future. It just does not make any sense. Bradford will not be claimed. He will have a job next week or the week after, but he won't be claimed. And for Bruce Irvin, I don't believe he gets claimed either. I don't believe teams want to pay him that money for this year to have him for 8 games. That's why these two, they should be considered favorites to go to the Rams. The Rams should be primary front runners, but they should be up there. And if claimed, not saying I believe that they would be, but if claimed for Irvin and Bradford, I have a couple. Actually, I have a handful of teams that would be interested. I think Bruce Irvin, first off, you have to look at his former home in Seattle. That's where he was drafted, first round. The Seattle Seahawks definitely could be an option. The next team, I would say the New England Patriots, because they're always going to kick the tires. They may not sign somebody, but you know Bill Belichick and the crew are going to be looking at them. Bruce Irvin could definitely help that team. Pittsburgh Steelers, adding more help on the edge. I'm not really a huge fan of Bud Dupree, and I don't know many Steelers fans that are. I think he would help that team. The Dallas Cowboys. You have Chris Richard. Now, he's the passing game coordinator, but he was in Seattle as the defensive coordinator. Bruce Irvin knows him. That connection. Dallas definitely would be an option. And Dallas's defense continues to look good. It's not the defense's fault. So, in a quest to, make a playoff berth, those are 4 teams that could be in the playoffs. I think Dallas is the least likely. I'd say Seattle's more likely. And I'd say New England and Pittsburgh are shoo-ins. So, those are Irvin's fits, I would say. And then looking at Sam Bradford, I'd say New England, the Josh McDaniels connection. They work together. I'd say Jacksonville. And the claiming, I don't know if that makes much sense, but he's definitely a fit. Blake Bortles, Cody Kessler, I mentioned this earlier. And, of course, Buffalo, who's literally having to start Nathan Peterman because the guy that they asked to come out of retirement, just kidding, I don't know if he actually came out of retirement, but Derek Anderson, who was in, the 2005 Pro Bowl, he is out. So it's going to be Nathan Peterman. They just signed Matt Barkley. So if there's any fits, Buffalo would definitely be one of them. And I guess, I'd hate to say this because, Minnesota, they have my guy Kyle Sloter out there. I just think maybe if they kind of want to redshirt him this year, they don't even want to use him as a backup and they're looking long-term. Trevor Siemian, I'm not really a huge fan of. Sam Bradford has success there. I would even look at New York. Maybe the Giants claim him. They look at him moving forward for next year. There are different options, but those are, just a handful of teams. I think the front runner for Irvin is the Rams. I think with Sam Bradford, to be completely honest, I think Buffalo, because they're in desperation mode to just get a quarterback out there for fans to buy tickets to watch. The Rams should be a contender, but again, it's a matter of, do the Rams want to just get rid of Sean Mannion at 8-0? It's hard to just get rid of players like that, and I get it. I'm not going to hold it against the Rams if they don't go out and get Sam Bradford. I just think it makes the most sense if you're talking about a 1-year rental, where, again, if he's not claimed, he becomes a free agent, that $20 million goes right off the books. The Rams wouldn't owe him anything in 2019. So if they can get the veteran minimum with Bradford and Irvin, they should do it. But again, if I'm making a prediction, I do think the Rams get Bruce Irvin. I think that they'll end up signing him. I think there's interest. I think they will sign him. And I think Sam Bradford will end up with the Buffalo Bills. So that is about going to wrap up this mini podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed. Again, I could probably go on with other topics, but I just wanted to touch on these because I had a lot of thoughts on my mind about this. I think it's very interesting. When you talk about the midway point of the season, the trade deadline's over, this is the last way to really get better as you move into the playoffs and the hunt of the playoffs. So you're going to start to see these moves come up. I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams get both of them. I'd be a little surprised. But I think Irvin definitely is the favorite here. But definitely keep in mind, Bradford was a former Ram. And Les Snead was in that building when Sam Bradford was as well. So they have some familiarity. Hopefully there's not some bad blood. I think if the Rams can do it, both make sense. If not, they're 8-0. Regardless of what happens this weekend, they're 8-0 right now. They'd be 8-1 or 9-0 after this weekend. So it's really, I don't think it would make or break this team, but it's only going to help. I don't think it can really hurt. So that's my take on that. If you have any further questions, comments, or concerns, you can reach us at the Downtown Rams Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can message me on Twitter. JK Bogan DTR is my handle. Or you guys have added me on Facebook and such, so I always welcome that, as well as email. So that's going to do it. Hope you guys enjoyed, and you guys take care. Enjoy the game tomorrow, and I will be back after the game to give you a post-game reaction and maybe touch a little bit more on this. We'll see. All right, guys. Later.